I could hear the metallic clack of the heavy steel bolt sliding home into the receiver, a sharp and unforgiving sound that instantly killed every conversation inside the stifling room. 6 hardened men, trained for absolute violence and accustomed to exerting total control over any room they entered, froze in place and turned to look at the far corner. There she sat, silent as a ghost in the dim light, carefully wiping dust off the cold black steel frame of her long-range rifle. The entire atmosphere shifted in a single second, the thick heat giving way to an icy, suffocating tension that made every breath feel like drawing glass into our lungs. She did not say a word, nor did she make any sudden movement to threaten us. Yet the sheer weight of her deliberate, rhythmic composure forced the entire room to yield. Nobody dared to take a step forward. Nobody spoke, and nobody dared to touch her. My hand hovered just inches above my sidearm, my pulse hammering against my ribs while I stared at the absolute focus in her icy eyes. How had a single woman managed to paralyze the most formidable operators in the building without uttering a single threat? What deep, hidden motive had driven her to rack that chamber right in front of us? And what unspeakable truth were we all pretending not to see before she finally raised her sight? To understand how Clara arrived at that terrifying moment of absolute stillness, one had to look back at the 6 months preceding our deployment to the coastal sector. She had joined our tactical intelligence detachment without fanfare, bringing an immaculate record from government forensic logistics and an unsettling ability to spot anomalies that everyone else overlooked. Most of the men in the unit viewed her as an overly cautious analyst who belonged behind a desk rather than near live ammunition, but she never bothered to correct their assumptions or fight for their approval. She simply carried herself with a quiet, impenetrable dignity that kept everyone at a comfortable distance. Her life outside the facility was equally guarded, centered entirely around supporting her bedridden father and managing the mountain of medical bills that had accumulated over 3 long years. Her father had once been a respected senior manager at a major defense logistics contractor, but his career had ended in disgrace following a catastrophic inventory breach that resulted in missing military equipment. The official investigation had blamed his negligence, stripping him of his pension and leaving him broken both physically and mentally. Clara never spoke about the scandal in the cafeteria, but I often saw her lingering in the parking lot late at night, speaking softly on her phone to her father with a tenderness that starkly contrasted with her rigid professional composure. The first subtle fracture in our routine appeared during a standard audit of heavy weapons manifests passing through our regional staging harbor. Clara had been tasked with reconciling inventory transfers between naval supply depots and contracted security firms. While standard accounting errors were common in high-paced field operations, she noticed a faint pattern that defied simple human oversight. Certain high-value crates containing precision rifles, optical sights, and specialized demolition charges were repeatedly marked as damaged in transit or lost at sea along identical shipping corridors. When she quietly brought these accounting discrepancies to Commander Vance, our direct superior, he brushed them off with practiced ease. He explained that maritime transport in unstable international waters always suffered from administrative lag and minor losses, advising her to focus her attention on operational readiness rather than chasing ghost numbers in old ledgers. His tone was smooth and fatherly, yet I noticed how his eyes narrowed slightly as he swept her reports into a side drawer. Clara accepted his explanation without argument, nodding politely before returning to her desk, but the set of her jaw told me she was far from convinced. Instead of dropping the investigation, she began spending her free evenings cross-referencing shipping timestamps, vessel registries, and weather reports from the nights those inventory losses were reported. What she discovered made her chest tighten with growing apprehension. Every single vessel associated with the missing cargo belonged to a subsidiary of the very same defense contracting firm that had employed her father before his ruined career. The lost shipments were not random accidents scattered across global routes, but deliberate surgical extractions carried out under the cover of routine military logistics. The situation grew far more dangerous when our unit received orders to deploy to the southern border district to support a major counter-smuggling initiative. The mission was designed to intercept illegal arms shipments before they could reach black market buyers, yet every operation we launched seemed cursed from the start. We would spend days preparing precise tactical interventions, only to arrive at target compounds to find them completely abandoned, with warm ashes in the barrels and tire tracks disappearing into the desert night. Someone within the high-level chain of command was systematically leaking our operational timelines to the target network, ensuring that our team always raided empty buildings while the real cargo slipped through unnoticed. Clara remained silent during our debriefings, recording operational data and observing the growing frustration among the operators. She knew that questioning the integrity of senior officers without ironclad evidence was professional suicide, especially for someone whose family name carried the stain of an unresolved disgrace. She began keeping a duplicate set of encrypted digital records stored on an isolated physical drive, hidden inside the stock of her personal cleaning kit. Every evening, she logged the exact discrepancies between official operational intelligence briefings and the actual field conditions we encountered. The internal conflict within her reached a breaking point during a routine reconnaissance mission near the northern supply route. Clara had spent 2 full days analyzing intercepted radio chatter and logistics patterns, eventually identifying a specific highway checkpoint that she believed was being used as an active corridor for illegal hardware transfers. She submitted a formal warning report through the secure internal network, requesting that the route be placed under immediate aerial surveillance before our ground patrol was dispatched. Her warning was never forwarded to the tactical team leaders. 2 hours after our ground patrol entered that specific sector, they rolled straight into a meticulously prepared ambush that nearly cost 3 operators their lives. The attackers knew our exact vehicle specifications, our radio frequencies, and our emergency medical extraction routes. As the wounded were rushed into the infirmary under flashing red lights and the deafening noise of idling rotors, Clara stood near the glass wall of the tactical center, her hands trembling as she pulled up the internal network log to trace her original warning report. The file had been completely erased from the primary system, as if her submission had never existed in the official record. When she turned around to leave the terminal, Commander Vance was standing right behind her in the doorway, his arms folded across his chest and an unreadable expression on his face. He informed her in a quiet, tight voice that her specialized system credentials had just been suspended pending an internal security review due to unauthorized data access. He took her security badge directly from her hands, leaving her isolated inside the very facility where her father had lost everything, while the men outside prepared for a conflict they were being set up to lose. Suspended without credentials and stripped of official authority, Clara understood that relying on internal channels was no longer an option. The system was not failing by mistake. It was operating exactly as intended by those who controlled it from the top. That night, instead of leaving the base as instructed, she waited until the administrative floor emptied during shift change. Using a physical bypass key her father had fashioned years ago for emergency maintenance access, she gained entry to the decommissioned archive vault in the lower basement, where paper records from prior logistics scandals were permanently stored. Hours of searching through moldy files produced a terrifying realization. The original case against her father had not been based on missing inventory at all, but on forged transfer certificates designed to frame him when he refused to approve off-book hardware movements. Embedded within those old paper manifests was a unique serial numbering system that matched the exact serial patterns of the missing sniper rifles and specialized charges currently vanishing from our deployment sector. Her father had been destroyed not because he was careless, but because he was the first obstacle in a lucrative decade-long siphon run by senior officers within the division. Her discovery took a far darker turn when she extracted the encrypted digital logs from her hidden drive and ran a cross-analysis against Commander Vance's private operational flight schedules. The pattern was flawless. Every time a major arms shipment went missing from naval storage, Vance was logged as conducting routine administrative inspections at those exact regional facilities. Further cross-referencing revealed that the private security firm receiving the redirected hardware was registered under an offshore holding company where Vance held major financial stakes under a shell identity. The ultimate proof came when Clara managed to intercept a real-time satellite data link routed through a private channel in the communications room. A massive shipment of heavy sniper systems and tactical explosives was scheduled to be transferred directly to black market buyers at the abandoned harbor processing plant during our upcoming midnight deployment. The mission our team had been assigned for that night was merely a diversion designed to draw our platoon 5 miles away into empty desert terrain, leaving the harbor completely unguarded for Vance's contractors to complete the transfer. The tension reached its peak when Clara realized that this final transfer was not just a commercial sale, but a setup to eliminate the remaining witnesses within our unit. Among the equipment scheduled for transfer was a batch of sabotaged ammunition designed to cause catastrophic rifle breaches if loaded into standard military receivers. The paperwork indicated that these dangerous rounds were marked for distribution to our platoon's primary marksman before the mission began, ensuring that any operator who attempted to engage the real smugglers would suffer immediate equipment failure. Armed with physical documents, digital trail logs, and intercepted coordinates, Clara knew that presenting this evidence to local authorities would only result in her immediate arrest or silent disappearance. Vance had already alerted base security that she was a compromised asset who had gone rogue with sensitive military files. She had no allies left within the command hierarchy, no legal protection, and less than 3 hours before our platoon boarded the transport vehicles for a mission designed to be their last. When she walked back into the weapons staging area where our platoon was prepping gear, Commander Vance was already there, casually overseeing our final checks and making sure the compromised ammunition crates were placed directly onto our racks. Clara walked straight past the security guards who had been ordered to detain her, carrying her long-range rifle case in one hand and her father's old leather logbook in the other. She did not raise her voice, nor did she make a move toward Vance. Instead, she set her rifle down on the maintenance bench, unlatched the heavy hard case, and laid the original forged transfer documents directly over the open ammunition crates for every operator to see. Vance froze, his face draining of color as he recognized his own signature on papers dated 6 years prior, alongside the real-time satellite manifests from that very evening. Before his personal security detail could draw their weapons or move to seize the files, Clara reached into her kit, pulled out a match-grade round from her personal supply, and smoothly racked the bolt of her rifle with a cold, unyielding sound that stopped the entire room dead in its tracks. Commander Vance stared at the documents scattered across the ammunition crates, his usual calm demeanor completely shattering into a mask of pure panic. The operators around the room looked down at the forged transfer sheets, then up at Vance, their hands instinctively dropping toward their sidearms as the truth took hold. Every single lie, every failed operation, and every setup that had put their lives in danger over the past 6 months was exposed right before their eyes in black and white. Vance opened his mouth to shout an order to his private security detail, but before he could speak a single word, 2 of our heavy weapons specialists stepped between him and the door, their rifles raised in absolute silence. Clara did not hesitate or wait for Vance to recover his composure. While the platoon held the corrupt commander and his men at gunpoint, she picked up her rifle and led the team directly to the harbor processing plant, determined to catch the black market buyers before they could vanish with the stolen hardware. Moving with quiet, ruthless efficiency, our unit surrounded the perimeter of the facility, completely cutting off every escape route. Through her optical sight from an elevated position overlooking the dock, Clara monitored the target compound, guiding our ground operators through the dark as they systematically disarmed and detained the smuggling crew without firing a single unnecessary shot. When the state tactical authorities and military investigators arrived at the scene an hour later, they found the entire black market shipment secured, the private buyers zip-tied on the floor, and a complete physical dossier detailing 10 years of high-level military embezzlement waiting on the main desk. Attached to the top of the file was Clara's comprehensive analysis, linking every missing crate directly to Vance's offshore financial accounts, and completely exonerating her father from the past charges that had ruined his career. The evidence was so overwhelming and irrefutable that federal agents initiated immediate arrest warrants for Vance and every senior conspirator involved in the network before sunrise. The fallout across the command hierarchy was swift and unsparing. Vance and his accomplices faced immediate court-martial and long federal prison sentences, while the entire Logistics Oversight Division underwent a total civilian audit to clean out the remaining corruption. The forged charges against Clara's father were officially struck from the public record, restoring his full military pension, his honors, and his clean name. For Clara, the true victory was not the public downfall of the men who had betrayed her unit, but the quiet satisfaction of walking into her father's home to deliver the official letter of exoneration, watching 3 years of heavy shame lift from his shoulders forever. Standing on the tarmac weeks later as our unit prepared for a new deployment under fresh, honest leadership, Clara adjusted her rifle strap and took her place at the front of the formation. She was no longer viewed as an isolated analyst or an outsider trying to prove her worth in a hostile environment. She had defended her team, reclaimed her dignity, and enforced justice entirely on her own terms through sheer intelligence, preparation, and unwavering courage. As we walked toward the transport aircraft, she looked out over the open horizon with a calm, unburdened smile, knowing that her place among us was permanently earned, respected, and untouchable. In the months that followed the total restructuring of our division, the true impact of what Clara had accomplished reverberated far beyond the walls of our coastal staging base. The federal investigation, built entirely upon the indisputable paper trail, encrypted logs, and physical archives she had secured, swept through the high-level military bureaucracy like a relentless winter storm. Commander Vance and his network of corrupt contractors were stripped of their ranks, tried before a federal military tribunal, and handed severe sentences in maximum security facilities. Every asset acquired through their decade of illicit black market trading was permanently seized by the state, dismantled, and redirected toward veterans' medical programs and field safety initiatives. For Clara's father, the official notification from the Department of Defense arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. It was a formal, public retraction of every false charge ever leveled against him, accompanied by the full restoration of his honorable status, his back pay pension, and a personal letter of apology from the highest civilian oversight committee. When Clara brought the official document to his home, the old man did not weep or shout with triumphant joy. He simply held the parchment with trembling hands, reading every single line in absolute silence, before looking up at his daughter with a look of profound, peaceful relief that had been absent from his face for 3 agonizing years. The heavy weight of unwarranted shame that had slowly broken his spirit and health was finally lifted forever, replaced by the quiet dignity he had spent a lifetime earning. Within our tactical unit, the atmosphere transformed entirely. The toxic culture of suspicion, backroom favors, and engineered silence vanished along with the corrupt officers who had enforced it. Clara received her official reinstatement not merely as a logistics analyst, but as a senior tactical intelligence specialist and lead marksman, her operational authority recognized without question across every level of our command hierarchy. Yet she sought no special privileges, no public commendations, and no grand speeches of gratitude from the newly appointed command staff. Her victory was never about personal ambition, professional advancement, or retaliatory rage against those who had wronged her family. It was about drawing a clear, uncompromising line between integrity and dishonor, restoring truth to a system that had lost its way, and standing firm when everything around her urged her to yield. On the morning of our first routine deployment under our new transparent command structure, the sun rose sharp and bright over the tarmac, casting long, clear shadows across the runway. The coastal air smelled of fresh salt ocean spray and jet fuel, completely free of the suffocating, anxious tension that used to hang over every pre-flight brief. The operators gathered near the open ramp of the transport aircraft, checking equipment and running final radio checks with a calm, synchronized rhythm built on genuine, unbroken trust. Nobody questioned who belonged in that room anymore, and nobody looked at Clara with doubt or hesitation. Clara walked up the transport ramp carrying her long-range rifle case in one hand, her posture natural and her expression completely serene. She set her gear down in the designated rack, secured her harness, and turned to look back over the open airfield one last time before the heavy bay doors began their slow, mechanical rise. There was no shadow of grief left in her eyes, no unresolved debt to settle, and no quiet burden left to carry alone. She had reclaimed her family name from disgrace, protected the lives of the operators standing beside her, and enforced absolute justice entirely through intelligence, preparation, and unyielding moral strength. As the heavy engines roared to life and the aircraft lifted smoothly into the clear morning sky, she sat right at the center of our formation, completely at peace, completely unshakable, and truly free.